Roll call, please.
Oh, okay, we're recording now. Mike Berlin,
Here.
Laura Negro,
Here.
Pat Kenny,
Here.
Ron Stendor,
Here.
Marty Vitek.
Here. Quorum is present, thank you. Going on to approval of the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, can we move item number 9 up to number 5?
Following number 4, yes, we can do that. Is that okay with the motion maker?
Yes, I amend my motion to take that in.
Okay, who's talking, please?
Marty,
Marty Vitek, I'm amending my motion to accommodate moving item
9 to 5.
9 to 5.
Okay, thank you.
For a second,
Ron Stendor, second.
Ron seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 3, public comment, open discussion. Anyone online? This
Nope.
goes to,
She talks now on public comment.
go ahead, Lori, or Kim, excuse me.
That's okay. Good morning, everybody. So I just figured, I'm Lieutenant Lavasser from the Ashland County Jail. I see that the ARPA funds are on the agenda today. So I am going to come to every meeting and bother you guys every single time because we need the money. And so I am going to come and give my speech every single time.
You're gonna start squeaking.
I am. Yes, yes, I am. So I feel that the jail has been shortchanged over the years by a lot.
Mhm.
And I feel that we deserve quite a bit more than I've even asked for. We have not gotten raises. We've not gotten half the things we've asked for. And I'm requesting $5,000 a piece for the jail staff. We are not union, so we can't negotiate. I know that the deputies got quite a bit for each of the staff for the deputies. I feel because our staff had to go to work every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We were in the limelight. We had to be there. We deserve more than anyone else. No one could work online. We had to be there. It was actually required. Failing to report to work could lead to suspension or termination. So it's not like we couldn't show up. And if they had COVID or their family, the rest of us had to go in and work extra. So we were not only working our own hours, we were working overtime. And we're short-staffed as it is. So not only are we're the 3rd lowest paid county in this state. 72 counties, 3rd lowest county. So we're not only almost the lowest paid county, but now we're basically getting shortchanged on the ARPA funds. This is money that should go to people who were frontline workers during COVID. I believe that we deserve that. I believe that it should be given to us. I don't think that people who are working from home deserve this extra money because they got to sit at home and work. So I'm gonna come in every single time that this is on the agenda, and I'm gonna tell you guys exactly what I feel.
How many staff are we talking?
We have 14.
Order. We should be, if this is during public comments, we shouldn't be asking questions and interacting. Sorry, Kim.
Oh, it's Laura. Actually, I was actually because someone did come in and ask that at the jail last week. I was going to say that. We have 3 kitchen staff, 14 jail staff. There are 3 there's 7 dispatchers that have to come and go. They are civilian workers. However, they have to come into the jail, be around us and they have to walk through our halls to come to work. So they're also in the same situation. So all of us are putting ourselves at risk of COVID. So it's not only our kitchen workers, our jailers, it's also the dispatchers. So,
Thank you.
thank you
That
guys.
it? Any other discussion items? Excuse me.
DA.
Oh. The quiet guy.
I'm gonna step over here, if you don't mind.
Sure.
David Meany, I'm the district attorney here in Ashland County. Coming here, as I did about a month ago, on behalf of the staff in our office. I think you're aware that myself and our two assistant district attorneys are state employees. So this is an issue of the staff. And since then, since I appeared here last month, I've provided a letter to you last week. I have extra copies if you need them. Setting out, in essence, my concerns about the way this whole salary process and the overall budget process has unfolded. And in particular, if you are considering merit increases, I don't think you really can fairly do that in the absence of any policies, procedures, policies as to how you evaluate those requests. I'm focusing now on the salary and the merit, not the ARPA funds. I can make, in terms of the ARPA situation, the same argument that the lieutenant has made. Our office is essential to the functioning of the legal system here. It was so last year during the pandemic. Our staff had to come into the office to work, interact with the public. So I'm going to leave the ARPA situation aside because from what I understand, the proposal is for a lump sum for all the county employees, and I don't have any argument with that. But as I mentioned, I do have a really significant argument with the way this process has unfolded. I believe it is unfair to all county employees to have the issue of merit increases on the table without any guidance. So, if you do have money above, as I lay out my letter, above the 2% that was the direction from the county administrator, some of the departments follow that. I did. If you have money above that, I believe in the absence of a process, it should be on a pro rata basis. So if you have more money, make it 2.5%. And in the future, if you want to have merit-based increases, I think it's incumbent upon you to come up with a system. The system doesn't exist now. In my over 40 years of experience in both the public and the private sector, I've never confronted what I would call off-the-cuff merit increases. And I say that being involved both in the private sector and the public sector. When I was at the Department of Justice in Madison, before I came up here, I supervised over 100 assistant attorney generals, and every year we had a process involving evaluations, a process involving reviews. I don't see any of that here. What I see is people coming in and making requests where it's impossible for me to look at other departments and determine whether someone is more deserving of a raise than and someone in another department. I just don't think that's fair. And I said that a month ago. I did not see any process put in place. I submitted the letter asking for increases, if you're going to consider merit increases above and beyond the 2% for my employees or the employees in our office, because they do excellent and critical work. And I could have gone on for 3 pages in my letter, but I didn't do that. But I certainly could have made that point. So I know this is not in the public comment section here, a give and take, but those are the points I want to make. I don't understand, given the county's financial position, that there is money to put out there, but if you do make a decision to award merit increases above the 2%, I ask for all the, the reasons I've laid out here. I ask that it be done on a pro rata basis until the county, I hate to put it this way, but really gets its act together on the human resources side. So please consider those points when you move forward, and also when you make recommendations to the full board. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
I have a question. Will staff be able to speak during the agenda items about the raises? Or are we only allowed to speak during public comment?
Public comment.
Even if we're part of that agenda item and submitted a letter?
Okay.
It's up to you.
You can do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'd have to look at the handbook to see if there's guidance in there. I know in the city council, ordinance 51 allow for the public to be recognized if a member of the elected body asks the body as a whole by vote to recognize a member. I want to point out that in many of our meetings, we call on staff to answer questions and explain things. So we do, both in board meetings and committee meetings, we purposely ask staff to interact, but not allowing them some opportunity to speak during agenda item. Again, I'd have to look at the handbook to make sure if there's specific language that says yes or no to this. But we already, in some ways, put that burden on. Personally, in this meeting, until we clarify that, if we need to, if there's an item where we want clarification and we can get it from staff, I would be comfortable with that, because we do have letters from staff here, and I actually do have some questions related to some of that. And I don't know who I'm getting the answer from other than staff on some of that, so.
Point of
Okay with that?
clarification. It's a Robert's rules thing. It's not a policy thing. We can ask, we can ask people in question during our items if we want, but public comments is meant for public comments. It's just, it's a Robert's rules thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why do you have it do it now, and then if there's questions later, you can ask them.
Right. Okay.
Kelly Mayday is online and she was asking, I saw, she wanted to speak.
All right, so what, do you want to let Kelly go first?
I'll wait.
All right, so Kelly, we're gonna let you speak now.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to speak on behalf of 2 raises that I asked for the staff in our child support office. I asked, in addition to the 2%, for 2 of my staff to get $1 an hour raise. One reason I did write that in my budget, and I do want to comment on Mr. Meany's. I agree with everything he said. I do want to state, however, that I don't know what other departments do in the county, but I do know that child support is under Health and Human Services. And I have to do annual reviews on every one of my staff, and then justify if I'm giving them the board approved wage increase, if I'm giving them no increase, if I'm asking for more, and I have to explain why. Then I have to submit that to my supervisor, Terry Barningham, and she looks at it and signs off on it. I don't know what other people do, but I do that every year for our staff, as Terry does to her supervisors that she supervises. So moving forward on that, I have done an evaluation on every single staff in my office. I'm asking for $1 an hour raise for our front administrative assistant. She's been here for 2 years. She is the lowest paid person in the county. She has not gotten a raise. She is an amazing worker and she's very educated and she does a great job. And I feel that there are people that have just been hired in different positions in the county, in the clerk of court's office, in the DA's office, doing similar, same work, e-filing for the courts, that kind of stuff, writing court orders, and they're making $1 to $2 an hour more than her starting, and she's been here for 2 years. I'm also asking for a raise for one of my child support specialists due to the fact that there was an administrative clerical error on the human resources department, or whoever does the human resources for the county, that sent one of our child support specialists her acceptance letter and gave her a huge raise upon being here for 1 year. It was a clerical mistake. However, we couldn't go back on it after she signed her acceptance letter. So now I have another child support specialist that does just as good a work or better than her, earning $2 an hour less. And that's just not okay with me. The unique thing about child support is we do get 66% reimbursement on the dollar. So for every dollar we spend, it actually only costs the county 34 cents. So I hope that I can get this for them. They deserve it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Kelly. Did you have your hand up there, Laura? No, okay. Continue, any other comments?
Yes, I'll speak
Okay.
during public comment.
Here we go.
Mary Jo Gingras, Ashland County Land and Water Conservation Department. So I am an employee that's asking for a raise. I manage our Land and Water Conservation Department. I've been here for 3 years. Annually, we write grants for federal and state programs. The minimum amount of grants that we typically would write would be about 750,000 during my time in the last 3 years. So the minimum grants that I would have likely brought in just under my basic job duties in the last 3 years would be about 750,000. As of September 7th, I have brought in $1,597,000 in grants to Ashland County. These are grants that the county directly benefits from. In August, I asked for a fair wage increase at the Land Conservation Committee. I did an assessment of the 10 counties around us for my position, county conservationist. Some of these counties make more wage than Ashland. Some of these counties make less wage. So I was asking for a fair wage increase of $6,300. And then I came to the Finance Committee in August as well, and I was told, get a letter from your Land Conservation Committee, which is in your packet today, and asked for it to be switched to a merit-based increase. So then I did some calculations on the number of grants that I've generated. I did have an annual assessment or evaluation from my supervisor in December. Quote unquote, Mary Jo received exceptional or exceeds ranking in each performance measure and was noted for her exceptional grant writing and leadership. Quote, Mary Jo has been a high producer of material during the year I have supervised her. Her grant writing has been exceptional. She has a strong work ethic and exceeds in her commitment to the county in her position. Clark Schroeder, December 4th, 2020. So now I'm asking for a merit wage increase. And I do hear that we don't have a process for this, that we should have a county assessment done of all wages in the county. And I guess one of my points is just that there are staff that go far above and beyond what they are expected to do or what's the minimum amount of work. And some of us that are in positions, we do not have anybody advocating for us. If we are department heads, like 2 here today that have staff under them that they feel are deserving, we advocate for our staff. I came here 2 years ago and did the same thing for one of my employees. But as department heads, we really don't have anybody that advocates for us. So we have to do that on our behalf. And if we wait a year or 2 years for a county assessment that may cost the county thousands of dollars, there's no assurance that this is ever gonna be done. But those of us that do go above and beyond and have done assessments such as this to look at other wages around the region are asking for an increase. And then the last point I'm gonna make, my department, my position is 100% reimbursed from the state. So we get funding through the Department of Agriculture, Trade and Consumer Protection. My position is 100% reimbursed. I submitted a budget to the county a month ago that's less levy than what I submitted last year due to all the grants that I'm bringing in. We are getting an increase of $24,000 for staffing from the state this year. That's being applied to what I'm asking for a raise. This will cost the county not one dime. So I submitted 2 budgets, one with an increase request and one without. And due to the grants that we're writing, if I don't get an increase, that money is gonna go into other programs that I'm running for the county. It's not gonna cost the county a dime. There is no difference in the levy for either budget, and the levy is less than what was last year. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary Jo. Anyone else? Public comment? Anyone else? Public comment? Last call, public comment? Okay, thank you. Let's go on number 4, approval of the financial minutes.
This is Laura. I'll make the motion that we accept the minutes from the August 17th meeting.
We have a motion by Laura,
I'll second it.
second by Marty. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Question?
As a comment on the minutes, as I read through them, it was hard to tell which paragraphs the censures pertaining to which agenda items. It was more of a flow discussion in many cases. It would be helpful if the minutes reflected primarily the motion to seconds and the action taken, and that they're written in a way that you can clearly tell which agenda item we're on. Some of this just flows, I think, between items because there's interrelated things that we discussed in that meeting. So to the extent that we could have the minutes more clear, tied to agenda items in the future, that would be helpful. But we'll leave them as is today.
Was this a Laura? Lori?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments? I'll call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We are going to now deviate to the health insurance discussion. There were some handouts.
You should have them for you on the line.
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay.
Are all the handouts online in the packet too?
Yes, they are,
Matt?
Thank you.
Okay.
except for the one I'm proposing. So,
Say that again, Dan.
I know, yeah, John, do you want to start off and explain the?
Sure. If you don't mind, really what I want to talk about is briefly is the fact that prior to us working with you, and we talked about this the last time I met with the county, Kristen and I met with the county. She couldn't be here today, but when we met with the county last, we talked about how the county was underfunded and really there needed to be sort of a catch up at some point. And you know, without belaboring it, I don't want to, unless you guys want to get in the details, I have no problem with that. I've got all the information here, but the short version is that your claims were $2.1 million in the prior year, and they did spike up to $3.4 million. And even when we have the stop loss carrier paying those high cost claims, which they are, you still have $2.7 million of claims the most recent year and $2.2 million the prior year. So you have about a $500,000 spike in claims on an already underfunded plan. So as a result, our recommendation at M3 was to increase to either $3.4 million in terms of your funding or $3.5 million. And originally we had requested that you consider a plan design change. In subsequent conversations with the county and with Dan, the determination is that it's a little bit much to bite off all of that in 1 year. So if the county did not make a plan design change, but at least increased the funding to 3.4 or 3.5 million, it puts the county incrementally into a position where you're starting to right that ship and more appropriately fund for future years. It also doesn't do it all at once, which doesn't maybe cause as much disruption with employees. So that's the very short version of what's being proposed, unless I'm missing something, Dan, or something you wanted me to include.
I don't have anything unless the committee has questions, which I'm sure they do.
No? Lori, you have any questions?
No, I was going to propose that we step this down anyways. I've had a number of department heads call and talk with me about this, and I get it. For the last however many years, there hasn't been a lot of planning and keeping up with these expenses, so it wouldn't be as traumatic as what some of this stuff is. We're doing a lot of changes all at once, and so I get it. And I was going to propose anyways, even before I talked with Dan too, because I spoke with him and just that we break this into a couple of steps and we show them that, because people are upset about everything all at once because we're moving all these balls all at once. I totally get it. We're just, I know for myself, I'm pushing on a lot of these things because the staff deserves to have some kind of stability, whether it's the health plan or their wages or their procedures, but it should be something that helps them feel secure instead of all thrown. Like I said, lots of balls, and right now they're all up in the air and that's how it feels. So I totally get the two-step process.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
Well, this is more of a comment. As we look at whatever we do with health insurance, I think we should keep in context whatever we do with wage increases or ARPA funds. Because if we're going to put more burden on the employees with the health insurance, we need to keep in context whatever happens with raises too. But that's a separate discussion, but related for after this agenda item.
Thank you.
Something now or after?
No.
Yeah. Okay. So with this health insurance proposal option, there's a proposal I'd like to put on the table too. Basically, what the proposal is that we raise the employee portion of the healthcare premium by $250 for every single employee. That's above and beyond the raises that we have. If that employee can show that themselves and their covered individuals and their family have taken a COVID-19 shot, then they get a $250 rebate. And this would apply to everybody who's eligible to get the shot. So if you have a child who's under 12, you would still get the rebate because the child under 12 is ineligible. If you have a medical exemption, because there are some people who cannot take the shot for medical reasons, you would still get the rebate. If you have a valid religious exemption, that would be something that sincerely held religious belief that prevents you from taking it, then you would still get the exemption. The point to note here is nobody's being forced or mandated to get vaccinated. everyone can do whatever they want in that respect. However, because they're taking such a much greater risk in not getting vaccinated, and we know from the data that people are 11 times more likely to get hospitalized if they're not vaccinated, we're asking the employees to share in that additional risk our health insurance program is taking for their, and they're asking to share the risk for their choice. So I did give a handout to the members of the committee, and I'd like you to consider that option. I should note that this is being done around the country too. Yes, sir.
That $250 rebate, is that a once a year thing?
It's a monthly thing.
Month, is it, the rebate is $250 a month?
Basically, everybody pays $250 more a month.
Okay,
So just to use easy, I don't know what the exact premium is going to be, so I'm just going to use easy numbers. So say your monthly premium is $250 for everything. We're going to raise it to $500 for everyone. Those that can show themselves and their dependents, so that would be spouse, children over 12, they would get $250 back. So they would essentially be paying $250 a month. And this would apply then if, they're talking about the Pfizer shot will be available to 5 and 11-year-olds by Thanksgiving. If that's the case, then we give people 90 days to get those children vaccinated. So what we're doing is we're making sure we're protecting our county's health, the health employees are the county employees and the public who comes in here. And we're asking people to share in that additional risk that the county health insurance pool faces by that decision. Yes, sir.
Just a quick question, have we had any county employees get hospitalized for COVID?
I believe last year there was a case of hospitalization that cost the health plan over $1 million.
For COVID?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, it wasn't dependent, but still nonetheless, the county health insurance had to pay for it, which is why dependents would be covered under this too. And you can prove vaccination easily. You get the card, or you can go to Wisconsin Immunization Registry and you can get a print off there. And that shows every vaccination you've ever had.
I'm going to ask the administrator, in this document, you have for 12 and older, but if a vaccine is approved for people under 12, are you going to plan on coming back to us to adjust the ages here, or would you have a preference for modifying the language, what's in front of us, to say something to the effect of, if anyone, all persons in the household are on the plan that are of an age where a vaccine has been approved, then you wouldn't have to come back to us later this year if one's approved for the 5 to 11-year-olds.
Paragraph 5 addresses that. Yes, sir.
Who's going to administrate this? I mean, that's a lot of work to track
It is.
down every person, every.
Can you guys make sure and speak up so we can hear online too? Thanks.
That's asking who's going to administrate this. We're going to have to, well, that's something we'll have to work out going forward. I would say that we make this a requirement by the end of the year. So that does give us a few months to get all the information together. I would also say that, for those who aren't vaccinated, that the county gives them the paid time to get vaccinated. I don't think we should make this hard or difficult for people so they can take their paid time to do that. The county health department runs a vaccination clinic every couple of weeks. Price County runs one frequently. They're run every doctor, every pharmacy has them. It's not hard to get one, and they're all free of charge. Our tax dollars paid for it. So we're not making it difficult. It's just we want to reduce the risk to our health insurance pool is really what it comes down to.
Question. So would this policy be in place of any other additional increases to the employee shares?
Be above and beyond.
Oh, above and beyond any other? Okay.
Above and beyond.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Would you be given an exemption if you have a religious reason?
Yes, and the second last paragraph addresses that.
Okay, so Okay, so you would be given that exemption.
For sincerely held religious belief, correct. Because we don't want to run afoul of federal laws either. But I gave an example there of what wouldn't qualify. If somebody, and I gave a very broad example, if somebody came and said that my Catholic faith doesn't allow me to get a vaccine, then I would say to them, well, Pope Francis and the US Conference of Bishops is actively promoting vaccination. So it's hard to say how your Catholic faith would prevent you when the US Conference of Bishops is actually doing that. Yeah. So, yeah, but there are going to be cases where people do have sincerely held beliefs, and we should respect those. Yes, sir.
I guess just looking at this at face value, I understand what you're trying to do, and I know that they do it sometimes with smoking,
Mhm.
where there's an assessment where somebody with smoking pays a little higher. This to me seems like a little bit of a slippery slope. And, what other issues could it then be transferred to? As far as cholesterol, your cholesterol screening is a certain amount, and then we then surgically look at removing you from those policies and stuff. And to me, it's a coerced mandate to get the vaccine is what it seems more like to me. Just looking at the face value, I'm vaccinated. I don't want to people walking out here thinking I'm against vaccines. But I just am not comfortable with this, and I don't know what it would take to get comfortable with it, to be honest with you. I understand the concerns and, the high cost of insurance regardless of who's playing it on. But I'm just concerned that this is not going to get what we need, and it's going to create other issues. And again, like you point out, the laws, I think, somewhat clear as I understand it, as far as a religious belief. You don't have to be a member of a specific sect or anything. All you got to do is exercise your belief. My belief is I don't want this, and that's the end of it. And I guess I'm just not comfortable with this, and I would be opposed. So.
Well, Mr. McKenzie, I can tell you that a mandate's coming. Period. As soon as OSHA issues their rules, DSPS here in Wisconsin will adopt those rules, and it'll be the law. It'll be the law in Wisconsin. The state employees are already mandated to get vaccinated, and so there's no reason why DSPS is not going to force it on everybody else. So you're going to have early next year. This is going to become a mandate anyhow. So this is really trying to just push people a little faster.
We have Laura on the line. Laura?
Did Corp Counsel look at this?
No, he did not.
Okay, I would just like him to give it a preliminary look just to make sure. And also, I'm starting to hear some of the counties that are further down in the state, they're sending their people to North Dakota. Start thinking about the pricing on that for our health plan. If we don't have, I mean, I get it. I get there's people that don't want this, but we've had vaccines in Wisconsin be requirements for kids to go to school, to mandate it. This is part of our health care plan. And while I understand people's hesitancy, I know for myself, even though I had COVID, I was very willing to get it, but I also think of my neighbor when I got my shot, because you know what, then I'm least likely to make, my 80-some-year-old father-in-law sick, or my 60-some-year-old aunts and uncles and stuff. We all need to come around to that piece, because that's what's happening now. One of my dad's best friends died in 13 days. He was at the end of August, he was diagnosed, and on the 10th he died. He wasn't an unhealthy guy. This stuff scares me, and I don't want this for our staff either, or their families. We have to do something, and I'd rather give a bonus than give a penalty.
So what's the wishes of the board? Do you want to, oh, I'm sorry.
I have a question for Dan. Are all our employees required to use our health insurance?
No, they're not. Employees can opt out of health insurance. So if you have a spouse that has a better health plan, you can certainly use that plan instead.
Matt?
Just another question on how it would work. So we're basically gonna be paying $250, so your 500 number would be right. You're talking rebate, so would we have to pay it? Then, you know, how soon would they get that money back, or could it be
I don't,
a $250 charge on their paychecks?
it was,
How would that be?
I would view it as on your paycheck, if you have the proof in that your family's vaccinated, you get the 250 charge, you get the $500 charge and then the 250 credit on the same check. So you wouldn't see the same. You wouldn't see it.
Sure.
To me, I don't see a problem with being vaccinated if you're over 12. But I'm really wondering about the people under 12 getting vaccinated. Unless, to me, they're more susceptible and nothing has been proven on those people, the younger people. I would hate to have them turn it back that everybody has to be vaccinated.
No, it's
No,
not approved for children
I
under 12.
know, but I'm just saying, down the road, I guess I would stick with the 12-year-old now and don't put the language in there that if the FDA approves mandates that, everybody under 12 needs to be vaccinated. I can't buy that right now until there's more tests.
I appreciate this issue coming forward. I think, two things. This is being implemented as a way to help the finances of the county. And it stemmed from the massive claim last year. So it does serve to assist the county in paying for a self-funded health insurance plan. And then secondly, we do have employees in the county that do not wish to get vaccinated. And some of these employees also will not wear a mask, and they put other employees at risk. And we've heard from the health department of a case where we have a worker there that has a family that has some health issues, and they are working with other staff people that are not vaccinated. So this does provide incentive for staff that are taking responsibility to try to protect themselves and their family. It provides incentive to maybe encourage others as well, but it is not a mandate.
Thank you. Pat?
In response to Mr. McKenzie's comments about we don't mandate, there's certain other things, there's all sorts of things people do that aren't good for their health. You mentioned cholesterol. Like the difference with COVID, in my mind, there's two things. One of which is if you choose to eat food that has lots of cholesterol and you're going to be obese and have diabetes, that really doesn't affect me as long as you can still do your job. But COVID, well, there is a risk there. So even if I'm vaccinated, but I still have some risk of getting COVID. And we should keep in mind, we've actually lost a board member to COVID. So when I think about, am I going to run or not? One of the things that I'm thinking about, and it's really first on my list, is do I want to be in a room with the people I see, especially if I don't know, how many of them were vaccinated. I'm enjoying retirement, but I'm still at risk from getting COVID and dying. And I got to weigh that risk of coming to a meeting like this with doing other things I want to do in life. So with the COVID, there's that risk that you're going to harm somebody else and perhaps their family. And that could lead to more people being out of work because they're sick, could be they're taking care of someone in their family, they got sick because, that this gets spread. The other thing about COVID mathematically, when we look at this, it's expensive when people get hospitalized. I saw a story a day or two ago, the average hospitalization is about $500,000 in this country when someone gets COVID. And I completely agree with these comments here. From a staff perspective, the more money we're spending on healthcare as a county, the less there is for raises, and we know our constituents don't want to pay more taxes. So we would only add to the risk to the taxpayers and to the risk of the employees and whatever raises, that we could otherwise provide. So this COVID is an outlier, meaning it's really different than the other things where we pool risk. And because of that, we want to mitigate the risk to the county financially and in the health of the people that work here, but also those that you interact with the public. It's just an outlier.
Laura?
I was wondering why your hand was up. Dan, do you need us to approve this as part of accepting, like, moving forward with our M3 piece, or do you need that separate? And then are we going to talk about how we're implementing the M3 piece of this? Because as wonderful as John is here, and it's nice seeing his little face in my online here, I'm sure he's got other things to do if we're going to talk about things that aren't exactly M3.
I would like you to approve it as part of the health plan with the condition that it goes to corporate counsel, or just to ensure that's okay.
Okay. Did you want that separate from whatever we're doing with the M3 piece then?
That's up to you guys. However you want to do that is fine with me.
Okay, then whichever way we're doing this, then we need to talk about the M3 piece and how we're implementing that.
So the only decision really from my perspective, since we're not going to change the plan this year, we're going to tell employees we're keeping for this year the same plan that we had last year, but we are increasing the funding to $3.4 million. I just want to make sure that it's 3.4 million and not 3.5. And if you ask me, obviously, which is better, the 3.5 would be better because you're really advancing your position that much more in terms of, appropriately funding your plan. And that the choice is yours, however, you can do either or, and we have the rates available for either. So that's really the only decision on, I guess two decisions. One is it 3.4 or is it 3.5? And then I guess, just approving the funding for next year.
And wishes of the board? Are we prepared to make a motion?
Well, the board kind of needs to make a decision on October 5th because, the budget has to be approved at the next board meeting. So.
Point of clarification. We did at the last meeting have everybody budget for the 3.5. So do we just need the motion that that piece is approved now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I will make the motion that we implement paying the $3.5 million or budgeting for that. Let me try that again. Okay, I want to put the two pieces together. The $3.5 million be what we have for our healthcare plan for this year, and also to include the bonus, is it? Or rebate. The rebate of $250 for those that are vaccinated as described in the plan that Dan has.
We do all motions, or can it be one?
Can be one, two is more clear. Laura, can you do the motions so it's more clear to everyone?
Okay, let's start with the $3.5 million. That's what my motion is to put into the healthcare plan $3.5 million.
We have a motion.
I'll second.
Pat Kenny seconds. I'll call for the question. All those in favor, go ahead.
Just a quick question. This is to forward it to the full board for approval?
Yes. Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, question for M3. So we're looking at about a 21% increase. Do you have some sense if that increase is really going to get us on a more sustainable path, or COVID's been a big outlier the last year, with some things. Or are we just kind of keeping up with what we might expect with healthcare costs going forward? Because we got pre-COVID and we got COVID. And can you explain how you think that this is actually getting us on that path versus maybe just keeping up with what the new normal is with healthcare?
Yeah, this does apply two things. One is it applies medical trend, and medical trend is a combination of medical and prescription drug inflation, which had not been appropriately applied in recent years. And it's applying 6% medical trend and 10% prescription drug trend. So when we apply that, plus we're applying what I'm going to call catching up. We're catching up to the tune of $500,000 of being behind in where you should have been funding. So I do think that this does get you close to where you need to be. The one thing that we will have to do at some point to more appropriately align your plan is look at changing the plan so that it's benchmarked to be better aligned with what we're seeing in the market. Your plan is richer than most plans. And because it's richer than most plans, if you don't change your plan, at some point, you're going to end up, needing to have another increase in funding. So I think it gets you 3/4 of the way there, but at some point you'll need to do the other 1/4 of the way by adjusting your plan, either moving everyone to a high deductible health plan with an HSA or narrowing the network or doing some other thing to get you the rest of the way.
Do you have a sense of a timeline for switching to a high deductible if that's what happens?
Our recommendation would be as soon as administratively possible, but we also understand that you have, you've got the balance between what we call the balance between HR and finance. So we know that you want to reach consensus at the county. So 1/1 of 23 would be great.
We'll be looking at like a pharmacy benefit manager and stuff to sort of bring more cost down.
Question.
We're in a motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. That was one part of a two-part motion here now. How do we want to take care of the healthcare proposal for the $250?
Y'all want me to do that one too? I can stutter some more online. I make the motion that we accept the administrator's plan of a rebate for the health insurance.
An increase and a rebate.
An increase and a rebate. Then we'll amend it to that. Lori, did I make a mess out of that again?
Okay. You don't have it sitting in front of you, so.
I don't.
I'll second that, but then I want to make a comment and perhaps an amendment. For the kids 6 to 11, once the vaccine is approved, it's approved. And we trust that the science was done right and it's going to work out as intended. A lot of parents get really nervous when it comes to their kids, especially their healthcare. And I'm wondering if we could consider, and this is with Mr. Burdick spoke to this, but he left, or not Burdick, Metzinger, is perhaps we allow a window for after that vaccine for the 6 to 11 is approved to see if it really does go with larger numbers in society to be safe and effective as we think.
Up to.
And in that respect, it's sort of some balance there. Yes, we're going to get there, but we're going to give it a bit of a window of time so parents can see, is this really okay? Is it safe, or is there a lot of unexpected stuff?
Point of clarification, didn't you say give everybody 90 days for that, Dan? Did you think some needs to be longer with that, Pat?
No, well, let me rephrase that. It's just, because what you're saying is from the time it's approved, giving them 90 days. And what I'm wondering is if giving a longer window then plus that 90 days. So it might turn into 6 months or maybe 9 months. And that way more parents would have more time to see if this is effective, if it's safe, and what the risks are, just to get comfortable with doing that. One of the things in the back of my mind with this policy is What if we do have a bunch of employees that leave? How do we fill that gap? And when employees leave, a lot of times you end up paying more for the person that gets hired to replace them. And this vaccination policy with the 6 to 11-year-olds, if we push out, even 6 to 8 people, we've got costs associated with hiring, training, et cetera. And we might, I'm wondering, be better off in the long run with a little longer window with the 6 to 11-year-olds. That's just what I'm wondering. I don't have kids, but maybe some of you that have kids, and you can weigh in on whether a longer window would matter to your comfort level.
I would weigh in. This is Kelly Madej, if I can. I have children. I have a 6-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 12-year-old. And when the vaccine is available, I want my kids vaccinated. I feel like by not passing this, you're hurting the people that are getting vaccinated. I have staff in my office that are not vaccinated, and I do not like coming to work and being around them and bringing that home to my kids. I don't like it. My 12-year-old is vaccinated, and I feel like if it's available, the 90 days is plenty. You're essentially putting the people who do get their kids vaccinated, you're putting them at risk because of people who don't want to do it. And the science is out there, it's being tested. They're not going to put it out there until they do test it. And I'm 100% on board with what Dan is proposing. And I have 3 young children. Thanks for listening.
And I have a 10-year-old, and he's getting vaccinated as soon as possible. As soon as it's approved, they'll be first in line.
I have a 14 and a 16-year-old, they're both vaccinated. I 100% agree with what Kelly said.
So we have a motion on the floor by,
Laura.
second, a second by Pat. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Thank you. Quite a discussion. Education. Next, Ashla and Chamber.
Okay, well, I have given a video to Dan to show, and if you can just pay attention to that video without, looking at the other stuff that we have. It's just a little bit of an education video to kind of tell you a little bit about the role that the chamber plays in promoting tourism. One caveat, fresh money means just fresh money coming into our area. And we're going to shoot the black bear in Glidden, but the window was really dirty. So that's why we don't have it there, but you'll see that in just a minute. So thank you, and we can talk. Good morning, Ashland County Finance Committee. I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about the relationship between the Chamber and Ashland County Tourism and what do we do for Ashland County. And I thought what better way to tell you some of the things we do than to get out here and show you. We're at Glidden, and this is one of the very first murals in Glidden that Sue Markinson and Kelly Meredith painted. Behind us is the beautiful black bear, and you can go walk over to the window and look at the black bear if you'd like to. So we're working on an autumn fall automobile road trip. It's the automobile road trip to Ashland County. So whether you're in Chicago and coming up, or whether you're in Minneapolis and coming over, we're gonna have hot spots for you all over the county. Because we collect room tax, our priority is to bring heads and beds, people to sleep in our hotels. Because every time someone sleeps in a hotel, we get a portion, state gets a portion, and you get a portion. The county sales tax has been increasing overall the last 5, 6, 7 years, along with the economic impact of tourism in Ashland County. And we're really proud of that because we know that every time someone sleeps in a bed, you get a portion of that tax. Last year at $1.5 million, the sales tax has been a godsend for our county, and we're so appreciative of that. But I want you to know that every time we spend $1 on tourism and it comes back, all that fresh money, because that's what we want, that fresh money coming in, they're paying a portion of the sales tax. So we want to keep that growing. And that's a really good return on investment when you're trying to promote tourism, not only in the city of Ashland, but Madeline Island, Millen, Glidden, Butternut, Marengo, Clam Lake, Odena, everywhere. Do you know, I should find out from Copper Falls, they had their biggest year in 2020, but they charge tax at their concession stand. That goes in the Ashland County coffers. Another part of Ashland County tourism is the Ashland County Visitor and Activity Guide. We create this, we sell the ads for this, it has its own account, and it's an incredible piece. We call this our fulfillment piece. So regardless if we do an ad for the chamber or an ad for the county, this is the piece that they receive. And I want to explain a little bit about that. I want to use an analogy because let's say somebody called the Bayfield Chamber and said, yes, I'm interested in coming to Bayfield, send me a visitor guide. Well, they will give you a Bayfield Chamber visitor guide. This is the difference. We give the Ashland County visitor guide, and the visitor guide that we have includes Madeline Island, Ashland, Mellon, Butternut, Glidden, Odena, Marengo, Sanborn, and Clam Lake. So it has all the communities covered by it. And on the back of it, we have the top 10 reasons to come to Ashland County. And in the back of the guide as well, we have itineraries to show people what you can do when you get here. It's an interesting feature on the front. We always try and pick a cover that's going to have a message. This one shows it's a little darker. It's a young couple. We're trying to reach that age group between 30 and 45 this year. Fishing is very COVID friendly. So they're fishing, they're relaxing. It's the springtime, which is our shoulder season, and it shows a beautiful sunset. This could be a lake either on the Chequamegon Bay or in Glidden. They could even be sitting right here at the Trinidad Creek in Glidden. And as we're talking about fishing, like the visitor guide picture of the young couple fishing, it would be very appropriate for me to sit in this beautiful fishing chair at Bobber's here on beautiful Butternut Lake to talk about our two absolutely amazing fishing pieces that we created in the last 2 years. Fishing is a COVID-friendly sport. We definitely realized that in Ashland County. The fishing on Chequamegon Bay during the ice season was amazing, and the fishing in inland lakes and on the bay has been incredible for the last year and a half. People can get out and fish. The fish are cooperating and biting. That's very helpful. So I'd like to just talk about this map, the Ashland County Inland Lakes map. Jeff Shannon from the River Rock Inn and Bait Shop is the creator of this map. We hired him to put it together, write all about it. It is fabulous. We've had great reviews on this. These were very expensive to do the graphics, the design, the artwork, and then to print the maps was nearly $20,000. They're a little high vinyl, so if they get wet, they're not going to ruin. And they are non-advertising maps, which means there's not any advertisers on these maps. They're clean, and they are great. Another line item in our budget is the GEM marketing line item, both for the state and mini GEM grant. So let me explain what that is. GEM, J-E-M, stands for Joint Effort Marketing. The State of Wisconsin Department of Tourism has a GEM program that they work with destination marketing organizations throughout the state. It's very competitive, and we apply for grants that will help us promote tourism during a shoulder season, maybe the spring, maybe the fall, or if we have a new event, we can apply for them to help us market that new event. The GEM actually gives us 75% of our marketing costs the first year, 50% the second year, and 25% the third year. And then they want you to stand on your own, and that's why they do a 3-year term on their GEM grants. Murals have been exceptional for Ashland County, and Glidden is no different. This is their newest mural at Marion Park, and to the right of me is the IGA, the Zach family used to own it. Karen Thorpe is actually the daughter of the Zacks, and she is on our Ashland County Tourism Committee. So this is a beautiful mural. They're going to be working on one more mural coming up next year in 2022. Troy Bebo is working on that, and we're excited for them. Going back to GEM though, we wrote a GEM grant in 2017, 2016. We ran it for about 3 years, and it was a fall GEM grant called Follow the Mural Brick Road. And what we wanted to do was to encourage people to come up. This is not weather dependent, so it's a perfect type of event to promote. And they could go from Butternut all the way up to Madeline Island and see the beautiful murals of Ashland County. So we called it Follow the Mural Brick Road. And again, there are murals in every county, community in Ashland, so we're so proud of that. Which we ended up taking that money, Ashland, Bayfield County, investing in our new 2-county bicycle map. The bicycle map is at the printers right now and will be available soon. It's going to be a second reprint because these are all on-road bicycle trails throughout Ashland, Bayfield County. The partnership started back in the 90s with the Ashland Chamber and Ashland County Tourism. I'm not sure why it was put in the Forestry and Rec Department. I suppose because it was recreation, but that's where it's been all these years. You'll see the many line items on there. But prior to 2009, Ashland and Bayfield County joined forces, our tourism departments did. We each put in $10,000 out of the marketing budget that we had, and we created a 2-county visitor guide. We also marketed with that $20,000, tried to get people to come into the 2-county area, realizing that people didn't really know when they passed the Ashland County line and when they went into the Bayfield County line, we're too small. And we really had the idea of bringing them in, and then the communities could take over from there. With that being said, in 2009, the old Bayfield County Tourism Director retired, and a new person came in, and they ended up that they would really like to do Bayfield County tourism on their own, so they decided that they would separate from Ashland County. Well, then we had to start doing some things on our own. With the budget that we had, we really couldn't do it by ourselves. So we stepped up again with the chamber and decided we would be the partner that Bayfield County used to be. So I really think it's important that you know that when we do ads for waterfalls, or when we do ads for Madeline Island, or when we do ads for murals, that we are paying for a lot of those ads out of the chamber budget. Although the county does pay for some of them, they don't take on all of the cost of this. We'll have some sheets that can explain that a little bit better. Right now, I am at Marion Park in Glidden. They're getting ready for the Labor Day County Fair, or the Labor Day Area Fair, I should say. And this is where the tractor pull is. This place is going to be popping. If you haven't been here to Glidden, you need to come down here. There's so much to see. And that's what we try and promote. These little areas, it's beautiful here. Well, we've been talking about fishing. We've been talking about murals and art. And of course, the granddaddy of them all is waterfalls. We produced the waterfalls brochure about 2 years ago. We've gone through about maybe 30,000 copies so far. It's really a hot seller, waterfalls in all of the 4 counties from Ashland, Bayfield, Douglas, and Iron County. That's the place to be. So one of the other hot spots for our automobile tour is the tunnel mural. And the tunnel mural is so cool because it has all sorts of animals, and each animal has the Ojibwe meaning for each animal. Also, there's a scavenger hunt, so you can bring your kids. Hey, if family are visiting friends, bring them on down to the tunnel. It's really cool, and the view of Lake Superior is amazing. So that is our little spiel, and I thought that would be an easier way to understand kind of where you really, the $35,000 budget line item is really to really fund your tourism department for Ashland County. And I would really hate to see that there wouldn't be any promotion for the county, because there's just too many things to promote, and it does bring back a lot of money. The economic impact last year, even during COVID, was $34 million in direct tourism spending for Ashland County. And each year, now we were down 7% last year, but the state as a whole was down 28% just because of COVID. And people still want to travel. They want to go into these smaller areas. And again, with the waterfalls in the south, with Madeline Island in the north, and all the things in between, we've got a lot to promote. So with that being said, I've made some just some notes about some of the things that we spend money on, arrival list. I'm not going to go through each line item because I know you have a really long agenda. But my point making here, as I made in the video, is that we use a lot of our money to leverage. When I do my vendor, or when I do my vouchers, I'll put down, for example, Minnesota Outdoors or Wisconsin Outdoors, and the total might have been $1,500, and we charge the county $750 and we pay $750 or what have you. So I just wanted you to see that, and I wanted you to see some of the brochures that we do for the county. We got into a new program, now going back up to a rival list. It's data aggregation. It's the really creepy stuff that follows your cell phone, and so it pings. And I swore I would never do that, and now I'm doing it, but it's a new program. The state of Wisconsin Department of Tourism uses that for data collection. And so for $5,000, we were able to do for Ashland County. However, I asked the Bayfield Chamber to chip in $1,500. We put in $2,000, and then the county out of our marketing budget is at $1,500, but it will give us an incredible amount of data on who is coming, when they're coming, where are they coming from? And now they're tweaking it because there's a couple of us that are asking questions. The state is tweaking the program to show where the region is that they're coming from. So yes, they're coming from Minnesota, but is it Minneapolis? Is it Rochester? Where are they coming from? So that's a really cool program. It's brand new. And I think that we'll be invested in that for a couple of years so we can get some good data. Also, I just wanted you to know that we also have the Travel Ashland County website and the visitashland.com website. We kind of share that. Visitashland.com is kind of the powerhouse of the area. We have lots of reach on that and lots of people hitting that site. So we kind of use them both so that we can get kind of two bangs for their bucks, if you will. We also work with Northwest IFBEC, and you have a line item, I think, you do for $3,000 in there. And I'm the vice chair on the Northwest IFBEC group. IFBEC, it's kind of interesting. It stands for International Trade Business Economic Commission. It really is just tourism promotion that like 10, 11 counties, we get together and we promote the Northwest region of Wisconsin. And then it brings them in, and then we take over as the county tourism partners and the chambers, what have you. But I've also got a couple trail maps in there for that. And I just want you to know that I feel like sometimes it sounds like you're making a contribution, but it really, again, it's an investment. And out of that $35,000, we received $18,900 for administrative costs, including, website, postage, things of that nature. So I'm certainly open to any questions that you have, any comments, concerns, jokes, riddles. I know everything's so serious before this, and then I'm like, so, okay.
Pat,
So the county has been giving you $35,000 for a long time. The city, I believe, hasn't given you anything for about a decade. Most of the room tax is collected in the city of Ashland. To me, this feels like double dipping. The state law allows you to collect that room tax, and it's over $300,000 right now, which is a lot of money. And most of that economic development, or at least a lot of it, occurs in Ashland, which is where these people are, the waterfront, et cetera. So why doesn't the city contribute something?
Well, I think that the city, because we're getting the room tax from the city, that's why what are they going to contribute, I guess? We're already getting the room tax from the city of Ashland. They get 30%, we get 70% of it. We have a really good partnership with our city. So we work really well with Public Works. We work really well with their planning department. We're promoting the city of Ashland is the city of Ashland. We're promoting the whole county, Madeline Island, Copper Falls, Butternut, Dan. And so you have to have a little skin in the game if you want us to promote the whole county. And I guess my point is, if you think that someone else can do that, to the extent that we do for $18,900, I would like to hear, how can we do it more for you?
When someone goes to Copper Falls, at least my relatives, because I don't want them at my house in Ashland, when they come here, and this is true, I've had relatives there this summer, and I said, get them, go tell them, which they did. But they go to Copper Falls, they go to these other places outside the city limits and they spend money. And so, but Ashland then, if you're saying that they, because of the room tax collected here, this is part of the county too. This is, roughly half the population of the county right here. And so you're asking us to, as a county, to pay, this 35,000, we pay 6,000 towards maintaining the trail and to use for some events, et cetera. And the city isn't paying anything, and yet they get, I would have to believe, more economic development impact than outside of the city limits, and yet they're not putting anything. I think if you're gonna ask the county to pay something, I think you should ask the city to pay something too, in part because they get 30% of the room tax. And they're keeping that money.
But I think it's irrelevant to the city and the room tax. This is about tourism in the county. So what I think you're stuck on is it's just Ashland. Yes, Ashland creates a lot of return on investment for the tax. Last year, just on the room sales, the county received $23,000. And that's just on room sales in Ashland. That's not Madeline Island. And Madeline Island is a gunner. It's a big powerhouse for the whole county. It creates jobs and brings in a lot of money to the coffers in Ashland County. And the other thing, like you said about Copper Falls, yes, it's very competitive. Do people stay outside the area? Yes, they do, but they're coming in here. And our data shows us, and this is from about 10 years ago, that even though we're the hub, they travel around. It's like a wheel, it's like a spoke. So they may stay in Ashland, but they're going to Madeline Island, they're going to Bayfield, they're going down to Cable, Hayward. That's why we're trying to put feelers out everywhere, because day tripping can bring in quite a bit of money as well, and taxes.
So you just said, I think was my point is, Ashland is getting a lot of the economic benefit, the hotels and whatever are here. Yes, there's some increased sales tax, but then they're not contributing anything. So you're asking the county to pay something
What
where
would
the
they
city
contribute?
is.
I don't understand where are you thinking they should, I don't really know what you're asking them to contribute. I mean, Bayfield Chamber, they don't get anything from the city. The Washburn Chamber doesn't get anything from the city. None of the chambers get anything from the city because they're promoting tourism and getting the room tax from the municipality. I don't know what you're asking.
So
This is different because it's the whole county.
If the 70% of the room tax in the county that you're collecting
City.
is not sufficient, then what you're asking us to do is to promote things that include being in the city here, because a lot of your promotions involve things going on in the city. The whistle stop, the book across the bay, there's a lot of stuff that involves the city with what you do.
Okay, no, we are not, in our budget that we have is promoting the county stuff. We don't promote, no. We're promoting Copper Falls, we're promoting the whole visitor guide, we're promoting the casino, we're promoting everything outside. We use our own money to promote the city of Ashland. We don't use county money to promote anything in the city of Ashland.
And where do most of those people stay? They stay in the city.
Well,
the
they
city's
stay
collecting
all
room
over
tax,
here.
and you
I
guys
mean,
are finding
they
it
can go
out.
to Madeline Island and stay in Bayfield for crying out loud. They do a lot of that. It's like I said, it's very competitive. People can go all over the country. They can stay in Park Falls, Phillips, Hurley, Ironwood. They'll stay everywhere. So it is a very competitive market, and we want to draw them here. Oh,
I'd like to speak on behalf of the chamber. I've been up here a number of years now, almost 30 years, and I made my living here working with tourism, basically. And as I see it, tourism for us is really a search engine, if you will, for economic development as well. There's a number of people up here, and across the college, you can almost say they fit into this category as well. There's a lot of people that come here to vacation because they saw something the chamber had on TV or at a sports show. I mean, I've been in Milwaukee at the state fair and have, seen our chamber office down there promoting Ashland County, not just Ashland, but Ashland County. I've been to Oshkosh, the Great Outdoors event down there. They used to have a Ducks Unlimited, which was one of the biggest in the nation. And again, they were there promoting our town. I think when you look at our overall budget, the little bit of money that we're spending on tourism is worth every penny of it. And, when I was working, it was not unusual at all for me to talk to these people that had one of the brochures that the chamber office gives out in their hand, asking me, where's this, where's that? This is what we're looking for. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm probably the ugliest cheerleader they have, but they've done a heck of a job for us. I've seen it firsthand. And what it does is it gets people here to Ashland County, and it gets them to start thinking about, I had a lot of fun there. What can I do to find a living in that area so that I can stay? And, we're seeing more and more of that. Especially with the COVID, the fleeing of people from the Twin Cities. And, I can look at in our immediate area, a couple of places now, these Airbnbs are getting more and more popular. And we're not gonna see that. I don't know how room tax, if anything, gets collected on something like that. But look at the number of homes in our community now that are Airbnbs for people that wanna come up here for tourism. We're talking ATV and snowmobile. I mean, it's huge. And now with UTVs, if you go through Clam Lake, Glen, you can't drive by any of those places without seeing UTVs in the parking lots and stuff. I just saw a group this morning. I went down and had coffee with some people, and I'll bet there was 20 of them down there at the Lake Shore, or I guess, Sandy's Lakeshore Cafe is the new name down there, that are in there, that are from out of the area. And, I guess what I'm saying is, it is working for us. I don't think it's a lot of money. I mean, we've spent $25,000 one year on the county fair. So 17,000, 35,000, whatever. I'd actually be in support of doubling it down at some point if it can get us more activity like we're already seeing. So I guess I just wanted to ramble on and say that I don't want to see this cut, and we've talked about this. I just believe in my heart of hearts, they are working as good for us as they can, and we're getting more than our money's.
Thank you.
Can I speak on behalf of the sales tax? As a county, do we really care where the sales tax is generated? Do we care if it's generated in Ashland or in Glidden or Mellon? The county's still getting the sales tax revenue. We shouldn't really care what part of the county it comes from. All we should care is that we get the revenue. That's my point. Doesn't really matter. We just want the tourist revenue, no matter where it comes from in the county. And we want the businesses everywhere in the county to benefit.
I have to say, I've had more fun talking to these board supervisors. And I think there's a lot going to happen in Ashland County, and especially in Back River too, now with Almea and economic development. Yes.
So, this finance and economic development, we've been giving the Ashland Area Development Corporation $25,000 a year, which is less than $30,000. And so, we don't have enough money for all the things that we would like to do. We know employees are going to pay more for health insurance. We know raises don't keep up with things. We know we don't have $2.4 million in the road fund that we thought we had. We know that we've got $1.7 million deficit related to healthcare. And so what this is there just simply isn't enough money. And for those of us who have to go around and knock on doors and hand out campaign flyers, we know how our constituents feel about taxes. We know that their incomes are not keeping up with inflation in this county, with second force county. And we have the lowest net new construction, which means our ability to raise the general levy is the least in the state. So these are the challenges we face. So you have a fixed source of revenue, which is good. It brings stability to that, which is the whole point of doing that. But you've got a city not contributing anything, and we are not putting as much into economic development. And so, yeah, it's one thing if people come here and, and do some tourism things, but we know the tourism jobs on average, as far as compensation, pay, and benefits, are not, for most people, living wage jobs. I would rather we have a conversation about economic development and see if we should be putting more into that, as a piece of this. So for the people we have, and we're losing population, which is another issue. So the people we have, that we have a stronger economic development piece. I think this is out of balance with all of the challenges the county faces. I mean, good for you for the good job you do and the money you have coming in. And I really mean that. But when I listen to the employees and I look at the wages compared to their peers, and I look at all of our needs here, good roads promote tourism, good roads promote economic development. It's just, I think at some point we've got to make some changes here, because the only alternative is we start taking on long-term debt that we don't have a plan for repaying. And I'm not at all comfortable with that. So at some point we got to change things.
I understand what you're saying, but you know what, I'm trying to show you too, that the return on investment is huge for tourism. At $35,000, Bayfield County's tourism department is $400,000. They bring in $153,000, it costs them $248,000. We are getting a bang for your buck. And yes, it's economic development in the purest sense, because we get fresh money in. It's not usually our money locally, it's the money coming from out of state, in the Midwest, out of the region. Go ahead, Mike.
Let's give Laura a crack at this.
Okay, a couple questions. What is the overall budget of the chamber?
Well, it fluctuates. Sometimes it's 600,000, sometimes it's 700, 500, depends. We are the fiscal agent for every event that we do, regardless if it's ours. For example, Cruising the Corridor might bring in 35,000. There's lots
Yeah,
of.
no, I get that. And then, are we making a decision on something with the chamber right at this minute? Because this is just a point of a clarification here, or is this just okay? Just wanted to know that. Thanks.
We want to solidify the amount of money that we're contributing to the chamber. So Mary here was gracious to give us some more time today and share with us what they all do and where they all do it at. And I thank you for your time. And let's move on. Number 6, county budget and debt levy. I'll turn to Dan on this.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time. Thank you, Laura.
Okay. Okay, so you all have the latest version of the budget in your packet. I'll just cut down to the bottom. And I first off want to point out, you guys get another crack at this before it's done. Before we have to send it off to the county board for approval. So the plan is, you guys, if you guys have any recommendations, you make those changes now. Then it goes to the county board on the 5th for their recommendations. And then this committee will meet again in October, where you make your where you finalize your decisions. And then in November, the county board does the final levy and tax and debt levy. So if we cut to the bottom, because that's really what you guys want to see. Oh God, this isn't the newest one. Hold on, let me pull it up.
Is there a way to email that out so I have a copy of that?
Yeah, Lori, can you please email Laura the newest version of the budget?
I would, but when I'm on Zoom, I cannot get to my own computer stuff. All I see is your screen.
Okay, can you go to my computer and do it, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, Lori, can you send it out to the whole committee?
Sure.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Lori.
Welcome.
Okay, so I'm going to the bottom here. And this, the allowable levy, which is the red number in the middle of the screen. Now we did the budget, the levy work. Let me try to make this bigger for everybody. There, is that easier to see?
Can you share your screen online?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was shared.
No, it's all good.
So I'm a little new to the Zoom thing, so. So share screen. Multiple participants can share simultaneously. Please let me, Laura, can you see it now?
No. It must be sharing to those screens in there. That's okay. If she emails that, I'm all right.
I'm still looking for it on Dan's computer.
Okay.
Under the U drive, and then budget. And
There you
then
go. It's shared.
Okay.
Ooh, 6.
Just clean out of the way a little bit. Okay. So the red number is the number we came up with on the county municipal levy worksheet. This is what we submit to the state by the end of December. And this tells us how much the county is actually allowed to levy based on last year's levy, net new construction, and any increases. Basically, as it stands right now, we have about a $740 increase in the allowable levy. Now, I did talk to Ellers yesterday about options, and I have some questions, and we might be able to get this number up a little bit, so I will do that. So it gives us a negative of $230,000 about between what is allowable and what is budgeted for the levy. That negative $230,000, we have two options. One, that can be put into debt levy, or two, we can use ARPA funds. Now, I know the previous administrator was planning to use ARPA funds to make up that difference. That decision is up to you, whether you want to do a debt and save the ARPA funds for something else, or whether you want to use it for this. We certainly have a lost tax revenue argument to be made with the Sanborn issue. So we can certainly do that, use that ARPA funds for that, given that. So in the end, we're looking if we include that 229, we're looking at a debt levy of 2.125 million, which is up from 1.5 last year. So this is money that how you've normally done it. You issue the debt levy, you take out a 60-day, 80-day loan from the bank, and you pay it back when the February settlements are made. So your interest rate is pretty low because you're only doing it for a short period.
So we haven't seen this document until just now, but maybe it's there if you scroll down, but what are you looking for as a tax increase given the current proposed budget if we put it on debt levy?
Well, we're looking at we're looking at the rate at the normal levy going up 8 cents per thousand, and the debt levy going up 61 cents per thousand. So for a total, so 8 and 60, total about 70 cents per thousand. So if you own a $100,000 house, you're looking at $70.
So that's almost spot on where I'm at, but so that means a good 7-8% increase on taxes.
Percentage wise, well, depending, no, it's not, it's 7-8%. I mean,
So look at, you're going up 8 cents and then you're moving up 61.
well, I can do the math on my calculator.
Yeah, so you've got the 8 and 61, 69, and then comparing that to that.
Oh, here. 6.9 divided by 6.9.
And that's, I'm just trying to get a clarification.
Yeah, you're looking at 7-8%.
Is that debt levy that you're talking about increase the 200 and some thousand, the difference between what we can raise and what you want to raise with this budget?
Okay, yeah, the debt levy is an increase. The 229,000 is spending requests above what the allowable levy is. Yeah, this is what we've been requested from, and so I don't know how to go forward with big changes this year. It's not possible, and we're too close to having the levy be done. Next year I'm bringing Ellers in to come up with a plan. We're working with the M3 to change the health insurance plan to lower those costs. We're going to be looking at changing how we do things in the county to bring more cash in so we don't run into cash crunches, more grants.
Can I ask a question? I mean, if we charge employees $250 a month, and some of those employees do not get their rebate, that's gonna generate some sort of revenue that's not reflected in this budget.
Correct.
And we don't know how much, because we don't know who's vaccinated and who's not vaccinated. That could generate some revenue. There's never been, and I smile about this and I'm cautious and I say this, but there's also not been a request for departments to reduce.
Yep.
So if we have departments that are high levy based departments, is there any thoughts about asking departments to scrutinize their budget and make some decisions at the department level?
And I want to change how we budget next year. You know, the way it's been done here, I'm sorry, this is in the way. These are really just general large areas. I want to go get more micro and get down to the line items. You know, in the city, we had our budget sheet was 16 pages double-sided, you know, with every single line item in the chart of accounts. In Allegheny County, my budget book was this big. I mean, so I want to get us to a more descriptive budget so we actually know what these line items are. And then, of course, then do a generalized version, so it's easier for you guys to see if you don't want to look at the micro level. But I think if we do that, those are steps we take to actually get these numbers under control and know where we're at.
So I would agree, we need a detailed budget where everything is in there so that we can look at that. Mr. McKenzie, you had that experience with the city. And we look at every detail and you start seeing things that you can talk about. I agree, we don't have time at this point. You're new and you don't have the detail. And you also need a process to work through with staff and departments. You know, what things can we potentially change? And it's also going to mean there's going to have to be a lot of trust among employees and department heads that if I give a little on this, someone else is going to give where they can give, and you're going to have to provide some strong leadership for those changes. Perhaps my biggest concern with the county is, I know I've been here less than 2 years, is it's been so hard to get anything to change, and yet this path that I look at that we're on, you know, with the net new construction, et cetera, this is in no way a sustainable path. We've all been told that, but changes come hard. I guess what I would suggest that we consider at this point, if this is something that's reasonable, I think the 78%, I know what my constituents would say, and I did a lot of doors and I heard loud and clear, even when I told them, look, I haven't been on the board yet, so I'm trying to understand things and try to help here, is perhaps we consider giving you direction to limit, to bring us the budget with a limit of a tax increase to, I'll say X%. I think 7 to 8% is too high for what the board is going to want to support, and we know our constituents, we know how that's going to go.
Right.
And then if you can use the ARPA funds to fill that gap to keep it down to something that this committee would support. But then we know those ARPA funds are only going to be here for a few years, but it gives you time to get a financial plan together with Ellen or whoever is hired. It gives you time to work with staff to look at changes that can be made there. And then as we start getting this detail, it will give the board and committee some time to start saying, what are we willing to live with as far as changes go? Because some of these discussions are going to be really hard, including the one that we just had. But if we want to put a cap on the taxes, we've got to be able to change some things. So could you live with, you know, being given direction to bring us back a budget with ARPA funds filling gaps to?
Yeah, ARPA funds can fill part of the gaps.
So some of that gap, yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, and I want to point out that large portion of that 7% you're talking about is debt levy. So it's a one-time thing. So it wouldn't carry over to next year if we find ways to reduce that debt.
And yet 2 years ago, debt levy was, I think, 750,000. Now we've kind of tripled in a couple of years.
Yeah.
And so far, I don't see a change in that path.
And part of our big problem is we're not collecting all the money we're supposed to collect. You know, the whole Sanborn issue is cost the county over $1 million.
Yeah.
And we're working on a settlement with that. Something, you know, I'm working with the counties association on that and state legislature, but, you know, hopefully looking for some sort of help in that.
So one other question is the Health and Human Services, where the board voted to put $1 million of ARPA funds into that. Without scrolling up through the new budget here, because we just saw this, Is that $1 million in the budget, and is this after we apply that million or not?
No, it's not in the budget. What we're doing is that we're taking qualified expenses from Health and Human Services, and that comes up later in the agenda. And reimbursing the county general fund with the ARPA money.
So is that gonna help? What I'm trying to understand is if we set aside $1 million for that, and I read what you described, and I'm trying to understand the impact, if I would assume there's an impact on our proposed budget, if we have that $1 million set aside for those purposes.
Well, it has more of an impact on cash flow. It defederalizes that money so that we actually get to have it into our cash. If you want to use some of those ARPA funds that directly fund some mandated services, you could do that. But that's not part of the plan right now.
So tell me if I'm summarizing this correctly, and maybe I misunderstood this when the board approved it, we're really setting that money aside in an account that the county has, and we're using that to help manage our cash flow because we have so little cash.
Right.
And the intent is to not really spend that money, but to leave it there so that we can handle our cash flow. It puts us in a better spot.
Yeah.
But it's not going to impact what we seek in the budget to approve this.
Correct.
Okay.
But it does give you more flexibility if something comes up and you need to spend money.
I know, because your previous administrator spent a lot of time literally just trying to figure out how to manage cash flow to pay the bills. And that's not a constructive use of time if you can have money there to pay the bills.
Right, and that's what, again, that, an example that's coming up in the agenda. But yeah, we can look at some of those ARPA funds. I'm sorry, Laura wants to speak.
Have the consultants had any ideas to help us with some of these efficiencies in our departments? And have they been consulting the consultants, have they been asked about any areas that they can see have some bloat or things that we can do? Because we are paying them, and I know they're trying to, put up some guardrails and make sure that we have some processes in place and such. But part of that was to help us find a little bit of place, and we did approve money also to keep them on for longer too, to help with budgeting and such. But is that for next year then?
That's for next year. They're coming here October 6th, I believe it is. Does that sound right to you, Matt? Yeah. Okay, October, I believe it's October 6th. They're coming here and they're going to be meeting with all the different staff that work with accounting and finance. So they're going to meet with the clerk's office, the treasurer's office, Amber and Highway, and a group of people. And we're going to look at how changes that we can make system-wise to make the system more efficient, 2, easier, and 3, how can we get a handle on just general reports? Right now, managers get reports that aren't very helpful, and it makes it hard for them to make any budget decisions if they're not getting any helpful information. And so we're looking at ways, first of all, just to make it easier for everyone, so people know what they're doing and know what they're talking about. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of process.
I'd like some usable reports too.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of process changes, but it's going to make everybody's life easier. And we have to do this in a way where all the staff buy in. They need to be part of the whole process. The ones who are affected, they have to be part of the process and part of the implementation. And they have to understand what we're doing and agree that it is going to be better.
I'm all for that collaboration. I had another question here and it just got kicked right out. So I will poke up my hand in the air again when I think of it.
The question I got is the $1 million that the board had set aside for social services. At the time this was done, and there was a good amount of discussion that was made at that time too. And I thought $1 million was quite excessive because we only had a $3 million budget, $1.5 million each year. And that was 2/3 of the budget. We're just going to take, boom, set this aside just for, and of course, what we're going to do, as we just alluded to, is that we're gonna let that money sit there and use that money so we can use cost reimbursed through our state program.
Yeah.
And the question I have is, do we really need to have $1 million sitting there? Can we get away with $750,000 or even maybe $500,000 to free up some of that other money or other projects?
Right, and that was just a proposal. I mean, the way, let's see if I can pull up that sheet.
Some of that $1 million was because of it's kind of washing that money. Remember, we had to use it for certain things, and those were for the court orders because that was one of the things that was in that piece. And we end up with darn close to that $1 million worth of court orders for people and the expenses around it. So that's why that number was picked. It wasn't just pulled out of the air. That was actually what we end up spending this out of the general fund anyways. But we can take that money, wash it through, use ARPA funds for it, and have that in our, to open us up for our purposes. So that's why that number was picked, because between that and the court system and anything that was any court orders, we could go, hey, scribble off that little ARPA behind that money. Here we go. We have money in the general fund then.
Thank you. Matt?
Yeah, I guess, understanding the budget process a little bit here, what we're looking at is that, almost, $300,000 that you're looking for to balance the budget. I guess I would be in support of taking that ARPA money that has been set aside. I think we can already defederalize, I think I heard 700 some thousand. And it would make more sense to me if that's where we took money to balance the budget, whatever that number is that you guys craft at the end here, to cover that gap rather than to incur additional debt, because we can. That just seems sort of to me like we don't need to be in that spot. If we really had to, so be it. But with that money set aside, that money was given to us, if you will, to cover our past expenses. It just makes sense to do that. So, I'd much rather see us use that money from there than go to the debt limit to come up with that money.
And that number is $359,074.14. That we're looking to defederalize. And that's in a future agenda item.
And through that process, we'll end up with some operating money to carry this.
Yeah, and there'll be more money from HHS that we can defederalize for cash flow. So I mean, there is that possibility.
Unforeseen at this time.
Well, I can guarantee it's gonna come up. So.
Go to work.
I'm all for, taking a slow time on this, but this is like the third budget process that I've sat through. And this is what we keep doing is we keep kicking this down. And I get that we have this ARPA money and yeah, it's really nice to have the ARPA money, but a lot of this was supposed to be for some great projects that could and I know exactly what position we are. We're not even behind the 8 ball. We can't even see the 8 ball sometimes, but we need to make sure that we are doing the best that we can with our processes and such. And I want to see a timeline. I love all this wonderfulness that we have and togetherness. But if we don't say by February, we're going to have this piece done. By March, we're going to have this piece done. I want to see some timelines. And yep, it can be a little flexible when we need it. But if we don't have a timeline, it's all this bubble gum and unicorns and glitter and stuff. So I'd love to see a plan put in place for when some of these, and I know October. So I'm just putting it out there because I'd rather right now take some of this ARPA money and save some of our, childcare centers so our people can work, that the ones that want to, so our businesses have people who have sitters for their kids so that we're actually affecting lives with it, which was some of this was meant for, but because we don't have these processes in place. So there's my little drum, boom, boom, boom. Thank you.
Well, I guess looking at the calendar here, we have a board meeting first week of October, and you need direction on what budget to present to the board. I'm going to suggest, and I'll make a motion if this seems reasonable to people here, is that we give you direction for the rate of increase in taxes. Maybe a minimum amount and maybe a maximum amount, and then you bringing us a plan to achieve that and using ARPA funds as need be to achieve that, and possibly, with what our chair said, changing, asking the board to change that million that's set aside. It's one thing to say $1 million a year, but I don't know how long the whole cash flow process takes. Maybe a smaller number would work if that gets us within the range that the board is willing to support. I think the board, my personal view is the board should decide what rate of increase they want to direct you to bring back for the final budget, rather than us. So if we could give you direction on what we think is a reasonable range and proposal to how to fill that, we could go from there. But I really want to echo what Supervisor Negro says. I really want to see a timeline to address the things that you're talking about. I have confidence that you're going to address those things, but I also know in my time here, those things have not been addressed as we were hoping. So I'd like to see that timeline, because a year from now, it's going to be really different, I think, for staff and departments with budgets. And they've got to have some time, and you have some time with them to work through those things. So does it seem reasonable that we give you direction on a range and how to fill it?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll make a motion that we directly.
Pat, can you keep breaking up, so I'm not getting your motion real clear? I don't know if you need to go to a different microphone or something.
Well, he's gonna come up to the table.
Thank you.
And what budget are we giving direction to? Because we have other things on this agenda that are behind this that could change any of this. So what motion are we going to make? Because we have other budget affecting items after this. And honestly, I do think this is the committee that needs to say, here's what we're looking at, here's what we recommend for a percentage, instead of passing it on to 21 people. Because then, you know, we've looked at this, we've seen the numbers. We're a county board run by committees, and we do this all the time, and then it gets kicked to the full board, and then it's either watered down or shut down. So if we don't give them a recommendation, how do they know what is like a good spot?
Well,
or a reasoning for it? So.
Well, what I'm suggesting is that we do provide a recommendation, but as we have to keep in mind that it's actually up to the board in the end.
Of course.
To approve them. So, and maybe we should talk a little bit among ourselves. My thought is, all things considered, that the tax increase be at least 3%, given the needs of the county, et cetera. And we know inflation is higher this year. It's probably going to run 3% or more. So that's just keeping up with inflation. But I'm also keeping in mind that's a lot more than our net new construction in all likelihood in this county too. So something on 3% on the low end, and I would say 5% on the high end, to ask the administrator to prepare a budget in that range. I think that gets us within a target for the board at the meeting in October to say too much or too little, and that way we can come back in a meeting after and make adjustments as need be. That reflects the input of the whole board on the target for the tax increase.
Pat, are you suggesting that we accomplish this by replacing levy dollars with ARPA dollars? Basically, that's.
Well, let's say today the finance committee says tax increase at the most 3%. And what that would mean is we would, I believe in all likelihood, have to use ARPA funds to fill part of the gap in the budget. So if we say 3%, that's it. ARPA funds are going to have to get used versus debt levy. If we were to say we're willing to live with a budget increase of 7%, then I believe that we could do that simply with debt levy. But I don't think the board's going to support a 7% increase if we can find a path, at least for now, with an increase that's in the 3 to 5% range.
That makes sense.
So
What was the total percentage if we did the whole amount? That was this, because you guys keep breaking up, so.
So if we use debt levy, we're going to be increasing the budget around 7-8% with the proposed budget.
Okay,
The board's gonna have to weigh in on whether they're going to support a tax increase in that 7-8% range. If we want to get it down, say, to the 3% range, or maybe 5 at the most, then it looks like we would have to use some of the ARPA funds with the budget this year to keep that tax increase in the 3 to 5% range. And if we do that with ARPA funds, we also have to keep in mind, as Laura, as you were saying, that when those ARPA funds are gone, we've got to have a plan of making changes so the tax increases are at least somewhat reasonable.
well, I would hope we'd have a plan before we dry up those ARPA funds.
So I'll make a motion that we direct the administrator to prepare several versions of the budget with tax increases from the 3 to 5% range for the next board meeting. And in particular, point out how those are funded with or without ARPA funds and the impacts on that. And then keeping in mind that after that board meeting, we have another shot to make adjustments based on board input. So
This is Marty Vitek. I'll second that.
You okay, Lori?
You know, there's a lot of stuff on this agenda that could affect anything we're talking about right now. So are we just going to put that percentage down and then pile on top of it with the rest of this, or?
In the grand scheme of things, that stuff is not too much. So it'll have a negligible effect in the grand scheme.
Okay. In the grand scheme, I'd like to see these in a decent order. So when we do this, it feels like we're doing a process instead of spitballing, but okay, I'm all right.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. We have a merit direction. Now, going on the 2% merit. Dan,
Okay, this is actually, the merit pay is separate. 2% is already figured into the budget. And I am. Basically, several departments have asked for merit pay increases above and beyond the 2%. You know, you heard child support chime in earlier. You heard the jailers chime in earlier. And I'm sorry, it's hard to see with the Zoom thing on here. Let me see if I can reduce that. Let's see. How do I get the Zoom?
You can just grab the edge of it if you move your cursor to the right hand side.
Okay, great, thank you. And we are. And you see the totals aren't great, but they do obviously add up. They've all asked for justifications, been asked for justifications. Some of them, you know, one in particular, I'm gonna say makes sense. Our clerk of courts has been assigned to be registered in probate also by the judge. She's asking for a $5,000 raise. In my opinion, if she does, it's wise to give it to her because if she quits doing it, the judge is going to appoint somebody else, which is going to cost us a whole lot more money. So, I mean, I think this is one of those things where you keep a person happy and you save money in the long run. A lot of money, because you know, like dramatically large amounts of money. You know, because she's an elected official, she can't have her pay raised as clerk of courts. However, I did talk to corporate counsel, and because this is a separate position and it's appointed by the judge, we can make a payment for it.
I'm wondering if that's a fine or an executive committee question with what you're asking here, if it's their decision versus finance.
Well, I think it's probably both, to be honest.
They
I think
kicked all of this back to us.
Yeah. Yeah, the pay raises and everything were dropped back to finance.
Okay, let me clarify the pay raise versus the bonus part of this. If, in this case, what you're talking about is a permanent pay increase.
Yes,
But there's other parts of this that we're talking about, if it ends up this way, we're talking about a one-time payment, which is different than a raise.
these people are not asking for a one-time payment, they're asking for a permanent raise. So this would affect the complete base, pay base. So, Mary Jo, can I pick on you for a few minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, so, well, I want to be fair. So you're asking for a raise of $6,363,
Correct,
which is 100% funded by the state.
correct.
So that is going to be a complete base raise on her base.
Correct.
So just to make the numbers easy, again, not to get, your salary is public record, but I'm just gonna make it easy. Say she makes $60,000 a year.
I wish.
Okay. All right, say she makes $50,000 a year. And that's where her base is lying. So if this committee and the county board give her a $6,363 raise, her base is now going to be $56,363. If next year you award her a raise of X%, it's going to be on top of that $56,363. So every one of these merit raises increases the base.
Well, I'm going to ask the other board members here, when the conversation with the ARPA money started, I believe.
This is not ARPA money. This is actually merit-based.
Yeah, when we started with the ARPA money, we were talking about, something additional because of, COVID. And so it started, I believe the conversations were about, one-time things. And now we've really transitioned to simply raising, or we're not talking bonuses anymore.
No, that's a different agenda item. As part of, and I walked into this at the end of the process. So as part of the whole budget process and the decision to grant a 2% raise to everyone, some departments wanted higher raises for their employees. They were asked by our predecessor to give justification for those higher raises. And so this is what we're discussing now, department requests for higher raises for certain employees.
I agree with Mr. Kinney. This is really an executive committee decision as far as the amount, for the wages. And in the past, ideally what happens is finance weighs in on, can we do this? If we're gonna do this, this is where the money's gonna come from, and it's a matter of, can we afford this or not? So depending on how you did it, I mean, you can run it to finance first and say, this is how we can do it to executive. And then the executive makes a decision, or executive meets. And in the past, they've even had times where they just decide this is what it's gonna be. And it gets, sent over to finance to then put it into the budget or take it out of the budget, however you wanna look at it.
I would strongly suggest that if we're gonna be batting this back and forth between executive and finance, it should be a joint meeting.
And that's been done in the past.
Yes, it has.
Yeah.
Yes, it has. Laura, you got your hand up?
I think we need to recommend to the exec committee that they do a county-wide wage study with comparisons with the groups around us. And let's get a 3-year plan to get everyone in the correct categories and have continuity across our county and get them in a place where we're actually paying reasonably competitive rates, or at least where we can show people that in a few years, we can get them to the spot where they would need to be. Because you know what, we have a lot of open promises on a lot of stuff we do, and this one feeds into the other stuff I was talking about before. We need that wage study. We need it comparable to around us, because even like Iron County beats us. Come on, this is sad. We need to put these into place, and then we need to have the discussion about how we're gonna get everybody there. But we need to know where we need to be first. So when we're looking at this, and then with the clerk of courts, I don't like building that into her job, because what if a different judge separates those positions? If we pass a wage increase for an elected position, that's the whole elected position. I think this needs to be a second wage paid to her, or however it is, or somehow have it. I don't mind paying more if someone's doing another position, but that clerk of courts job may one time be just a clerk of courts job. Let's figure out what these positions cost and get that together, but just I
just made a
Say-
comment to Dan here to that effect. I was to understand that that was already in process, but Dan corrected me that Clark had wanted to put that up so that Dan would have firsthand information as this is being collected. So
Okay.
I was corrected in that response, but that will soon be something that will be done. Marty?
If that was a motion, Lauren, I'll second it.
Well, I would like to say, I would like to add the wage study to the budget for next year. I believe it's $37,000, around that.
Yeah.
And I do think it's important. It's gonna be hard, it's gonna be painful for staff. But in the end, it's gonna give everybody a fair place where they really belong fairly. And it's gonna give the county board as a whole and its committees accurate information of where you're supposed to go.
Yeah,
So I
and it's-
question.
So yeah, I will
meeting.
make that a motion then, if Marty wants to second it, that we direct to the exec to do a county wage study and have that put into the budget, because here's another one of those balls I said we were throwing in the air and we just keep throwing it. We don't put a plan in place, but then this can fold into our changes for the next few years, because we need to have a more stable process. So when it comes down to us making decisions in finance, our staff isn't scared that we're going to blow the place up, because, that's what we do. We throw curveballs at ourselves all the time. So.
We have a motion by, and seconded by Marty. Did you have anything to add, Mary Jo?
Yeah, the wage study is already proposed in the budget, so Clark put that in there. The thing to think about though is the county does not necessarily have the finances to offer all the wage increases. Okay, so you're gonna end up losing staff in the meantime. We saw it with Health and Human Services already. Your wage study, I don't know how long this is gonna take. So you're talking 2, 3 years, 4 years down the road, potentially, for any staff to actually see a fair wage increase. That's just something to consider.
Thank you. Matt?
Yeah, I guess I just want to speak out against merit pays, because my experience with it, and I've dealt with it in different ways, it just creates resentment. What happens is it pits one employee against another. Why am I more important or more valuable than somebody else? And I think the way you're looking at doing this is a wage assessment, as far as let's pay a fair wage and not be, playing around with this. I think the next agenda item is how you can award people for the work that they do, and it's not tied to their wages. So I guess I'm in support of looking at wages and let's pay a fair wage. Unfortunately, are we gonna have somebody leave? That's always a possibility. But let's get to where we're paying as fair wage as we can based on everything that's involved. And that's not be judging one employee against another on merit pays.
Well, thank you. The only thing, Laura, is
Yeah.
on your motion, and as Mary Jo alluded, that this is in a budget for 22. So if we can have that study completed in 22, so we have a timeline in there.
I mean, really, we may pay a little bit more for someone to do a little hurry up. We're not a huge organization. And people that do this relatively well and quick.
So we have
So-
$37,000 set aside for 2022 to 22 to do this task. Perhaps in 23 budget, it can already be in effect.
Yeah.
We have a motion on the floor by Laura, second by Mark.
Wait, was there a clarification? How much money are we putting in the 22 budget? Because Clark was directed to remove that. So there is currently no money in the 22 budget for this. So for a motion, could we get a dollar amount?
37,000 is my understanding.
Thank you.
Should we
Okay,
do
Pat.
up to $40,000 to make sure? Because I don't remember us telling him to take this out. Was that exec then?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Well, then I'd like to make that motion up to $40,000 and with timelines to be starting with our next budget to execute this.
Okay, and that's to go a recommendation back to executive committee.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So part of that wage study is going to presumably include information on sources of funding for the different positions. Because that has an impact on what the county is able to do. But I want to ask Mary Jo a question, because I don't understand this. If the position is 100% reimbursed, then for people in your position in these other counties, why don't counties simply raise that above the numbers we're looking at? What's the
Equal pay, I don't know for sure, to answer your question. But I mean, part of it is equality amongst department heads. My predecessor, or my counterpart in Milwaukee, they make 120,000 a year. Should I make 120,000 in Ashland County? We have the same exact job, same job duties, same responsibilities. Cost of living in Ashland County is much different than in Milwaukee. So across the state, we don't all make the same or equal wages. But in every county, the first position, county conservationist, is 100% reimbursed. So it can be determined at the county level, whatever you determine that you want for that wage to be. But yeah, there's variation. You have in front of you the letter from me of the 10 northern counties and what our wages all are.
So, and I'm really uncomfortable with, talking about individual positions, et cetera, with this, because I know how that's been through my working career as a public employee. I mean, it's a really hard thing to have, but it's also hard if this is 100% reimbursed from the state and the limiting factor on what people make in that position is that they're paid in an amount that's reasonable compared to the peers that they work with in their county. When we've got documentation here that in this end of the state, we have someone that's on the lower end. And so one thing we talk about is economic development. There's two parts to this. If we can get reimbursed from the state and that it costs the county nothing, and I guess I would ask administrators to look into that to make sure that we're not missing anything here. Well, that would be more money back to this local community from the state. Otherwise, it gets distributed to other places. It would bring more back here. But on the letter she wrote, and Mary Jo knows this, she did a little bit of math, and she said she has a 38% increase in the grant she brought in. And I wrote her a note, and she got her numbers reversed when she did division. She's now bringing in 260% of the grant money when she started 3 years ago. And that means there's a 160% increase in the grant money coming in. So she's bringing in 2.6 times what the predecessor did. That's commendable, but it's also a lot of money brought into the county where projects are being done that improve the quality of life here, things related to farming, the watershed. The watershed's important if people want to go fishing. All sorts of reasons, in fact, for Matt, fewer washouts with culverts and bridges, hopefully with some of the projects she's done, more work for local contractors. And so I'm just going to ask the administrator to look further into the funding here to make sure we're not missing anything. Because she's bringing in so much money that people like her really do leave and go other places where they're going to get a bumper. It's like, oh my God, if I can make that somewhere else, say in the middle of the state, the quality of life that she appreciates. We lose people like that, but we also lose a really big piece related to economic development when we lose someone like that. And so I want you to look into that and then and see if you want to bring that back to us or executive. Because it seems like if it's not going to cost us anything for the county budget, why wouldn't we support this given the economic impact that this performance has meant to the county? We want to keep that here.
I agree 100%.
So,
Did I have a question coming up over here now? I'll call for the question then. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Just to clarify, did you guys want a joint finance exec committee meeting then to discuss this?
I think it's imperative.
Okay.
Because we don't want to run into this, he said, she says. As a matter of fact, the executive committee and the finance committee is all the same except Ron. And what's his name, Mom?
Bill.
Bill Metzinger.
Okay.
But those are the only two different people.
Okay.
But we've had joint meetings in this last, as a matter of fact, a couple of them, I think.
Okay, well, I'll set one up.
They're confusing, but it would be nice to have that in, so that we're here in the same room, so that we can accomplish what we need to do.
Yeah.
Pat?
So on the previous agenda item where we asked you to prepare budgets in the 3 to 5% range, if you would take the numbers in this and said, with the proposals that if we include what's in the documents we're looking at, the rates, here's what your budget looks like. If you want to keep it in that 3 to 5% range. So I think what the board asks us as a whole to do is to say, if we did this, what would the budget look like? Could we live with this? And so when we come back in October to the board meeting, if you say, here's what this would cost the county, here's the consequences, then I think the board can weigh in on if you can live with that. Because right now, I don't think we're far enough in the budget process to understand the impact well enough of the choices we have to make.
If you just add one comment, I would suggest that when you get together as a joint group between finance and executive, you also designate a portion of your agenda time for closed session, so that you have the ability to discuss some of the intricacies, as you are negotiating perhaps a contract with people, and, there may be.
Can you speak up?
There may be some things that I want to discuss, not.
Good point. Thank you. Yeah. Mhm. So,
You're at the ARPA funding.
Oh, and also on that, if I could, we have a really nice group of lots of different papers and such. If some of that stuff could be put into one spreadsheet, so it would be a little bit more user-friendly than 16 different requests and stuff, once we do get to a joint meeting. User-friendly information is always cool.
thank you, Laura. Yes, I agree. ARPA, so this would be number 8 on the agenda. Do we need to rehash, or do we do the possible motion here is to recommend the board the $500 per staff?
Okay, so this
page do we?
This was kicked back by the executive committee here. My personal opinion is you just hold on to this for a while and don't do anything. Until we know how much ARPA funding we need to fill the budget hole, spending $100,000 doesn't make much sense.
So do you just want to go over this? Do you want to table this, or how do you want to
I
address
would
this?
prefer you table this because this is something you can do at any time because it's out of the budget. So you could decide in December that you're going to do this.
I would make a motion to table that item.
We have a motion from Marty here to table this item.
I'll second that.
And Ron Skindor seconds this.
It's a point of order. It was tabled at our full board meeting to come to this group to give an opinion. I think it was Mr. Kinney's motion to assess whether there's money available to do this. And that's the question for this committee. I'm just curious, if you table this, and if you do have another meeting before the next board meeting, you can still, but it should be in such a way that the full board at the next meeting should get an opinion from this group.
I think one of the reasons for tabling it, Matt, is because we don't know how much money is available.
We're gonna need more information.
I guess if you're not gonna have another meeting before the next board meeting, then you should make that decision now and bring it to the full board so that it just doesn't die for lack of, somebody doing something.
Well, the plain words, you have a motion, it's supposed to vote, but if the chair of the committee would allow it, I guess I'd like to see that budget, you know, range of 3 to 5%, what it looks like with this in there and with this out, with it not in there, as far as impacts on the budget. To me, that's the question is, and I think that my understanding was that was the question from the board. You know, if we put this into the budget, what does our budget look like? So if our administrator can prepare budgets in the 3 to 5% range and say, here's the consequences of providing this payment. And if you do it, this is what it means. And if you don't do it, here's where that money would remain or where else it could go for. Then we would see the choices. And then after the next board meeting, the finance committee has a crack at coming back and making tweaks. But I think you should include it in that, what we see next time.
Mhm. Yeah, I just think until you know how much ARPA money you're using, you really can't make a decision yet.
There's that, but then there's the whole Robert's rules too. And I think if you table something at one meeting, then the next meeting that you have, that tabled item has to come up. So it's going to come back up at the full board meeting if we don't meet before that, I think, which was part of Matt's point.
You can table it until any specific time too.
We
So you
can,
can-
but the county board already tabled it. So if we have another county board meeting before we meet,
The executive committee tabled it. The-
no, it was full county board, just,
Well,
On September 16th.
oh, okay, because I know the
Yeah.
executive committee referred it to this committee.
Oh, we're looking at on September 16th, no.
October 5th is the next board meeting.
Right, so we could schedule a executive finance committee meeting in between.
Next week.
okay. Can we amend the tabling to go to that meeting? Do we have to?
Vote, just vote it down.
We could vote down the tabling and then continue the agenda item discussion.
Either one works.
I could withdraw the table motion as far as that goes, if it makes a difference.
Either way. Call for the motion.
Well, there was a motion to table in the second, and we're supposed to vote without further discussion. So if we vote to not table, then we can come back and entertain whatever motion we would like.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed carries.
So now we can have whatever discussion and motion we want.
Should we make a motion to send this to the joint finance / executive committee with the information that we need? And yes, that would be a motion if that's okay.
The question I have is this going to include the budget that Dan's going to provide to us with that 3 to 5% variance? To include this or not include this? We'll need that information.
And that's what I would want to see is if he puts it in there, what does the budget look like, including where does the source of funding come from? And if he doesn't put it in there, what does that allow us to do otherwise in terms of either tax increase or other things that we funded? But what's your timeline on knowing the answer to the ARPA funds?
Okay, here's my issue. If you stick it in the budget, we're using ARPA funds, you're gonna change that final percentage. Now, because mathematically, if you're adding money, you're increasing the numbers and decreasing the numbers. So there is gonna be a percentage difference with that in there, as opposed to what the final number is gonna be. If you're gonna do this, I would prefer that you did it outside the budget using ARPA funding, so you don't affect that 3 to 5%. You keep, that stays clean. I think, but my opinion is to use this ARPA money for this, the ARPA money for this purpose, you still need to know how much money you're gonna stick into the regular budget first. So you know how much money you have remaining. And so what I'd like to do is give you a budget that shows you a 3 to 5% increase and how much ARPA money needs to be used to, one, to get you a 3%, one to get you a 5% increase. And then you'll know how much money you're using. And then after that, then you can make a decision, are you gonna spend $100,000 on the bonuses? That's how I like to see it.
When would you know the answers to what you just outlined?
Well, I'll have a final number, I guess, hopefully by the end of the week. I mean,
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Yes,
Laura, would you state your motion again?
I said, should we send this to the joint executive/finance committee with the information that we need? And if that can be done before that next board meeting, I'm okay with it. If if we're going to take longer than this was why I said, why are we doing all this stuff after we're okay in a percentage on the budget? Cart and horse again. That's why this was coming up and I was worried about it. Do I think that they deserve something? Yeah. I'd rather when we do some of this stuff, I know we're in financial trouble, but geez, this was to help some of those people that had to be there face to face. And this is the last thing we're considering, basically. Kind of grinds my gears.
So for the moment, there's not a second to that, but I guess my question to those on the executive committee or who have been on the executive committee, we talked about raises and it seemed that the consensus was that finance and executive committee should talk about raises because that's an ongoing cost to the county. Whereas the ARPA money is a one-time. Are we going to treat the use of ARPA money for compensation differently than raises? If we're going to treat them the same, then for consistency, we would have this at the joint meeting with raises. If we think this is a one-time thing and separate from raises and doesn't really need to involve executive committee, then finance could decide this. I'm recommending to the board.
Well, anything over 50,000, we have to go to exec for anyways too, don't we?
Except exec referred it to finance.
Yeah, I get that, but whatever we decide is still going to have to be approved by them.
Well, if we're going to have a joint meeting anyway, we might as well kill the proverbial two birds with one stone, whatever it is. So I'll second Supervisor Nagel's motion.
discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I
Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Okay. Not good. Number 10,
So this should be an easy one for everyone.
that's what you think.
This is, these are mandated services from HHS that are reimbursable to the county under ARPA. Obviously, the county numbers are hidden for privacy. Anyhow, I don't know, this may not have to go to finance, make it just go to exec, but I feel that it's better to go, the more people see it, the better before you do things. So, and just to take, this is $359,000 in ARPA money that we can stick into the general fund. I know you wanted me to look at using this money in the budget instead for next year, the government for next year. So that'll be part of the option, but we still need to defederalize the money, whether we keep it into the general fund or defederalize it, or use it in the budget next year. So.
Okay, so what are those, what did you say the magic numbers with no clarification on what they are?
Oh, this is mental health services. So the magic number is $359,047.14. And that would come out of that $1 million that was allocated to HHS.
So those are related to the
court order.
Court orders. So those are all court order related.
Yep.
Okay. It would have been nice to have more detail on that because I don't like approving stuff. I don't see what it is.
Well, we can't because of privacy rules.
Well, we don't have to put a name on it. We can just say, costs to this.
All court order mental health issues and the specific cases that we have dollar amounts for that we can reimburse ourselves with ARPA money. So far, we've only spent around $40,000 in ARPA money. Of course, we've committed to another about 100,000.
I'm sorry. What's that?
This is Pat. I'll make a motion to approve defederalizing $359,047.14 in HHS spending from ARPA funds.
And Marty Vitek, I'll second it.
Got a motion on the floor and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Defederalizing money is like a foreign skill.
motion carried.
Can we start like a little spreadsheet that shows us how much money we have in the defederalizable kind of spot for HHS and a running tally of that along with what kind of expenses and stuff, and so we can see as we're
Actually, if you look on page 2 of this item,
that's
There's
it
a-
so far?
so this is what we've actually spent out of ARPA money. So, yeah, so this 359,000 go to that. I'd go into that spreadsheet.
So $40,521.
That's all the expenses we actually paid. There's still some coming in, like the sound system. Not there.
But yeah,
You-
if we can have a whole total and just put them in a couple different columns, so paid, not paid, I'm good with that. But I just want to watch the countdown of this money all trickling out.
Yeah, I think everybody does.
Number 11,
So this should be an easy one.
If you keep saying that, maybe it will be.
I can help, right?
You can. It's just an out loud prayer.
Yeah, I know.
Ashla Area Development Center funding request. Carver, we want to let Carver talk. Carver was online. Is he still there?
It's there.
Sorry, I have this thing, show thumbnails. Talk.
Nope, not yet.
There.
Get-
Oh, Carver, mute yourself.
Need a voice. Star 6.
Carver, you have
You're
to
muted.
unmute yourself. Let's see. Ask to unmute. Try unmuting yourself.
He has twice.
I know.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Woohoo!
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. The deal is there sometimes. So right, you have my request in the packet. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about what we're working on right now or the need for this quarterly funding request.
You're clicking. You guys got any questions? Otherwise, I'm
No.
going to make a motion.
Just pulling it up here, so.
All right, I'm making the motion that we approve the fourth quarter funding request for the AADC in the amount of $6,250.
A motion on the floor.
This is Marty Vitek, I'll second that.
Marty has a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. That was the easy one.
This next one should be easy too.
The second sheet.
The next one, investment report. This is just information purposes, letting everyone know what money is.
Are we going to be having the fiscal consultants give us input on these investments also?
Yes,
Cool beans.
you don't even need to approve this, it's just information.
I got a question.
Yes,
When Mike and Steve were here a month ago, they pointed out that there's a jail assessment line in the budget here. And it hadn't been used since 2018. And so as the administrator looks at budget for the sheriff's department, if there's anything that money in the jail assessment fee could be used for, are we using it in the sheriff's budget?
I don't know the answer to that question. I'll check it
It's
out.
that falls under my PPLE and Ron, I see him nodding already. That is for like more emergency building or direct inmate needs. So we needed to have a new microwave for cooking food or heating food for the jail. That kind of thing comes out of it. It's not we can pull this kind of budget item in and have that go from there. It's more of a kind of an emergency fund is how it was set up. You get my gist?
So a contingency account?
There you go, contingency.
I guess I'd like to dig all the way back to whatever the state law is on that, because I'm not comfortable yet that if it hadn't been used for 3 years, I'm not comfortable that we fully understand how it could be used, because when the sheriff's department was here July 13th, they mentioned some repairs to the building that they would like to get done. So those were known issues for more than a year. And then the previous administrator pointed out we could use this. So I guess I'd like to make sure that we know what it can and can't be used for. If it's really,
In 2018 was when the person who was dealing with all of the budgeting and depositing and stuff like that, that's when she retired. So that would be why it was something that that's been sitting there since 2018. So the person that had that knowledge retired. And we did approve expenses out of that also. Those are in our meeting minutes and such, also online.
so when will we get a report from Mike or John, or Mike and John, who's working with?
We're gonna be meeting with them on October 6th. So I can ask them to give you a report later in the month. They tell you where they're at.
Okay,
I can have them come and join the Zoom conference for the next finance committee. How's that?
that works, sure. Moving on to sales tax.
That's up nicely.
Well, the numbers are going up, which is good. So the numbers are going up. It looks like we're gonna hit our numbers.
So our negative amount at the bottom is just what we
Well,
would normally anticipate.
Yeah, it's what we still have to get to through the end of the year.
That's good. I don't like negative numbers in red.
Right. No, it's just what we have to get to the end of the year. So, we're in September, we're already at 70% of where it was budgeted. So that's a good place to be.
On target.
It was past target. We'll end up with higher sales. If the trend continues, let me put it that way. If the trends continue the way they are, we'll end up with more sales tax than was budgeted. So that's a good thing.
That's a good thing. Any questions? Good, good. That's an info only item.
Yep.
And item next is a verbal administrator update.
Well, I think we've covered most of my stuff throughout the meeting. So if anybody has any specific questions that we haven't covered, I'd be happy to answer them. Yes, sir.
But I made this comment to minister before the meeting or something, so on the $500 premium day, it would be considered for only employees who weren't working remotely. But it's possible someone could have been working remotely, but then still has to get out of both the office to go interact with the public. So perhaps people from health and human services, maybe with some of the sheriff's department, the zoning office, et cetera, that they really had to interact with the public at a reasonable level that we capture most of those raises too. So you might want to look into that.
Yep. Yeah, we're looking at, I mean, we're really looking at $100,000 at this. So 200 people times 500. There's very few people who are going to be left completely out. And I can tell you that some of your colleagues are going to say that we should just use general funds to pay them, the 100% remote people. So that's an issue you're going to have to make a decision on.
Going on to item 15, the next meeting date. I think we should discuss the next meeting date being with the executive meeting or executive committee so that we can put this stuff together.
Right, so.
Purge or shuffle, what do you want to call it?
So the county board meets October 5th. Let me ask this question. Is everybody on the exec committee able to get a packet electronically or live in town where they can get one easily? So I don't want, I guess what I'm asking is kind of shorten time period between posting the packet and the meeting.
For my part, I can just drive up here and get it.
That's usually what I do too, because, well, I can get electronic.
And the chairman's right here in town, so he can get it easily. So can I shorten the time period for the posting? Because, you know, legally you have 24 hours, but I mean, like, that would just give us enough time to make sure that.
As long as I got gas in my truck.
Okay, so that I could just, so I will send an email out to people, and those who don't have email, I will just call.
I have email, but it's awful.
Okay, so, but you would get a message.
I get the CenturyLink, it just, out in Odina out there, just terrible.
All right, so today's the 21st, so realistically, we have then anytime next week. So what works well for you?
Not exactly. I'm at WCA, so it'd be nice to be and so will you, from what I remember.
That's correct. So actually, Monday and Tuesday are out. So we could do Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday next week.
I'm open.
Pick your poison, I'm open.
It's at 9 o'clock.
Is whatever time you guys want.
Yeah, like at night too, where people can come and attend our stuff.
But I think most of the committee.
Next week,
Is that in October?
No, Wednesday, 29th, 30th.
in Rochester down at the Mayo.
Are you all week?
28th, I can't. But otherwise, okay.
Friday,
Friday you can make it?
Yeah.
Is
20th is
Friday okay with
Tuesday.
you guys?
20th is Tuesday.
Friday, 9 o'clock?
Yeah, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
I mean, not this Friday, a week from Friday.
The first.
And then whatever we post, whatever we do then, I can post for the county board. Well, I just have to post whatever we can for the county board and give the updates at the county board. But this way, at least, you know, we guys can give you the most up-to-date information.
When we do things, we can put it on the agenda for the county board and we can add the packet later or
Well,
add to the packet too, so.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking we do.
So the board would get the information based on whatever happens after the meeting then?
Yeah, the board, stop sharing. There we go, now I get to see everybody. So the board would get what's presented to the exec finance committee meeting in the packet. And then whatever came out of the exec finance committee would be given to the board in paper. And So everybody would get the most updated version, they just wouldn't get it in the packet necessarily.
That can be scanned in and added to the packet anytime is what I'm saying.
Well, some people have to have things mailed. That's the problem.
Well, that's fine too for the people that are there, but sometimes us ones online don't get it because it's only on paper. So
Well, yeah, we can add it, we can amend the packet for people who are able to get it online.
If we met Wednesday, could everybody get the updated version in their packet then?
Yes, but I'm not gonna be here Monday and Tuesday. So that makes everything has to be done at the end of this week.
and Ron can't do anything but Friday.
Right, yeah, he can't do anything on Friday. That's why I said at least Wednesday, we could get everything finalized together. But I mean, whatever you guys want. I mean,
Well, Friday sounds like it's gonna work best. The other thing will happen is people get one thing in their packet, may or may not read it, but I guess in the packet, you could say an updated copy will be presented prior to the meeting or after the meeting, so people might know at least, well, let me not dig into this, because there's a newer version coming.
Right,
If they don't want to dig into it.
right.
You know.
And then I'll just give you a call on Wednesday, when it's ready.
Sounds good.
Forgot to say that this was going to be the easiest thing on the agenda to put that energy out there.
They did we settle on that?
Friday the 1st, I believe it was?
Yeah.
Friday, October 1st, yeah.
Okay, good.
At 9.
And then packet will be available Wednesday, the afternoon.
Motion?
Ron will make a motion. We
Ron
adjourn
makes
the
a motion to
meeting.
adjourn.
I'll second it.
Marty seconds it. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
I
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.